Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got it!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Worked out by Burke. Bounces into Cody. Puts it up. Scores!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into Tuesday of Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Jim Coyle with you as always, and Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers. How are you, Kevin?
Good morning. Yeah, interesting morning. Did you watch the Monday Night Football game last night? That ending, that was kind of crazy.
Holy cow, dude. That may be the craziest ending to an NFL game I think I've ever seen. To be honest, I was trying to think, what NFL game have I seen that has had that kind of crazy back and forth ending? And man, nobody wanted to, or everybody, they both wanted to win that game, but they sure wanted to win it at the end. But man, Lamar Jackson, he's up, he's down, he's out, he's back. It was nuts. That was just a great game to watch.
And how about the overtime celebration before the overtime celebration, right? You think
they were almost changing jerseys.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson was going to exchange jerseys with somebody, and I think they were starting to do that, weren't they? I
know. And then Leatherwood, you get the 5-yard penalty, and you throw the interception, but then the Raiders, they get the strip sack, and they throw the touchdown pass a few minutes later. So all's well that ends well if you're a Raiders fan, right?
Man, and that was opening up of their new stadium as well. That was their first night in there, I think.
Well, no, last year, but the first night in front of full fans. So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant officially. So what a night that had to be. You think they weren't partying in Vegas?
Yeah, that would be a fun place to go. We should go to an NFL game there sometime. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Can you imagine an NFL game in Las Vegas? Wow.
Well, they have a bowl there too. Yeah, there's going to be a bowl there too. You never know. And then there's a Big Ten tie-in. Maybe Indiana will be in the bowl game there.
Hey, I watched the Peyton and Eli version.
Okay.
They were doing, and it was mostly Peyton, but they were doing like commentary on the game, but they had guests coming in, kind of like our show. They had different guests. They had Ray Lewis on. They had Russell Wilson on. And they're sitting there talking about the plays, but also making fun of each other. Peyton had this helmet on that he had half on, and he was just cracking on him. And he's like, hey, man, why don't you put some powder on that head? Looks like you've been spraying some Pam on it. I mean, they were just cracking on it. But Peyton is pretty funny. But yeah, it was I enjoyed that. Some people didn't like it, but I enjoyed it. They were like a non-traditional
broadcast, just a bunch of guys.
Well, because no one knows more about the game than say Peyton. He's sitting there dissecting it, but he's being funny as hell at the same time.
Yeah. And I think they took that from the TNT, the NBA show, just a bunch of guys kind of talking shop and so forth. And I think ESPN is trying to do that on the football side. And then you have, ABC with the traditional Monday night broadcast. So, you have different ways to do it.
Yeah, I never turned over to that. I was like, yeah, I'm just staying right here. I'm going to listen to them because that was kind of funny. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I stumbled across it. Yeah, that's what I'll watch from now on. I don't need those guys telling me who am I going to listen to more, Peyton Manning or the other guys. Yeah, he's sitting there doing both. He's being funny and predicting. Sitting there predicting, well, they're in this, they're in that, they're going to do this, they're in a cover two. You actually learn a little bit more.
Yeah, Romo made that big a couple of years ago, the predicting of the plays, if you remember. He was the one that ushered that in, and now I think other people are taking that cue and going with it in the broadcast, and people seem to like it.
Tim asked where I got this shirt, 222. Well, this is actually 2022 for the Indianapolis host committee. College football playoffs will be in Indianapolis this year, this January.
It's coming.
National championship game. So yeah, that's what the shirt is, Tim. But yeah, looking forward to that.
Who's going to be there?
Who's going to be there? Who's going to be there out of the Big Ten? Iowa? Is Iowa going to be the representative from the Big Ten? Looking pretty strong after that win over Iowa State last weekend. That was a quality win. It makes Indiana's loss not look quite as bad. Indiana just looked bad on offense down there in Iowa City. They didn't look bad anywhere else. They just looked bad on offense. I'm not going to say they look great on offense against Idaho because we don't know. We didn't see a whole lot. We saw Stephen Carr, who looked really good. Passing game was still a little suspect.
Well, they didn't line up right on the Goodson TD, and they let a 4th and 2 go in that game too. So, I mean, the defense was okay. I mean, the defense wasn't great shakes. It was good. Defense also gave up 190 passing yards against Idaho, I mean, and they're banged up in the secondary. That's one of the things.
But what was most of that in the second half?
Some of it was in the first half. It was near the end of the first half and then into the second half. But you played off a little bit, but no interceptions for 2 games. They do have 3 forced fumbles, but the secondary, you lose Devin Matthews to injury, you lose Jamar Johnson. Some of those safety spots are not as talented as they were, but if Devin Matthews can come back for the Cincinnati game, I think that'd be pretty big.
And that Cincinnati game is going to be big. Sold out in advance already. Noon game, so people have to get here. They can't get too tanked up because they don't have enough time to get all jacked up. So just get a few in them, get some breakfast and all that, and then head to the stadium. And then they can do all that tailgating afterwards, especially if it's a win. They'll be more apt to do that. But it should be a lively stadium on noon for a national TV audience, a top 10 opponent. The first top 10 non-conference opponent, Kevin, they have had here in Bloomington in 40 years. Since number 2 USC came in 1981.
How about that?
That's a long lot, but we've seen a lot of records fall by the way. The 2 touchdowns scored by special teams for Indiana was the first time since 1969 against Kentucky. So there's more records they're being peeled away under this Tom Allen regime. So could be another one fall this Saturday.
Yeah,
that would be the biggest win in Tom Allen's career, I guess you'd have to say.
Yeah, Penn State was pretty good last year. I thought that the crowd was pretty lively last week. You had 47,000, which was really good. Here's an interesting thing too this week about Cincinnati, and I was talking to your producer John about this before the game. Clay Helton yesterday fired at USC.
Yes.
I
meant to bring that up. Yes.
Mike Bone is at USC now, and Pickle's name is being mentioned all week for that job. Is that a distraction for Cincinnati heading into the game, and could that work into Indiana's advantages?
Not only that, but Cincinnati plays Notre Dame after Indiana, so they've got big games coming up, and it's not just Indiana. Now you've got this distraction. You've also got the invite to the Big 12 going on at Cincinnati. A lot of stuff happening over there that could distract. Now, I'm sure that Luke Fickell, being the coach he is going to be as diligent as possible to not let that happen. But I'll tell you, although they beat Murray State 47-7 last week, do you know what the score was at halftime?
Yeah, 7-7, right? It was a tight
7-7.
Half, yeah.
They scored 40 freaking points in the second half. That's a big second half.
That is a big second half. But yeah, they were a little shaky in that game, and you don't know, coming in. And there's something to be said for Indiana playing that Iowa game being a little more battle tested than what Cincinnati has been the first 2 games of the season, facing Miami of Ohio and Murray State. You see that a lot in sports, and I've seen it even on the basketball side too. The teams that play the tougher non-conference schedules are usually a little bit more ready for the conference season as opposed to vice versa.
Also, Caden Curry going to be at this game, so at least he'll get to see a sold out Memorial Stadium at the very least, and hear all the action that's going on here. So that's good for Indiana. Lots opening up at 7 a.m.
You won't at 7 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah, there won't be. I won't be having any mimosas at 7 a.m. I can assure you. I will still be asleep.
Bloody Marys, mimosas. Well, you got. I'll tell you what. You're probably gonna have to get to the stadium though by 9 or 10. Otherwise, you might hit a little traffic. That lot might be a little more full compared to last week.
Got a parking pass, baby.
I know, but sometimes you have those parking passes, and sometimes the lot's full, and then they just shrug their shoulders, and you're SOL if you don't get there early enough.
I'm that's not a concern I'm having, but you're right. You better get to the parking lots early, folks, if you're going, because a capacity crowd, for one thing, it means a lot of people that don't normally come to the stadium. So, A, they're not going to know where to go. They're going to be a little slower. So things are going to just operate slower for that reason alone. You've got a lot of people that are not familiar with the surroundings than with just having more people, like Kevin's pointing out. So it is some great advice to get there early. Lots do open at 7 o'clock. Yogi's has their breakfast club. A lot of the students go there for that. So looking forward to that. It should just be a great weekend. The weather, I haven't checked on the weather yet, Kevin. Have you?
I have not either, but I've been hearing it's going to be kind of a nice, cool weekend, and that could play into but no rain or anything to speak of with regards to that.
Nope. That's Tuesday. Let's see. Daggone it. It looks like it's going to be a just typical 80-degree day, man. Generally sunny despite a few afternoon clouds, which we don't have to worry about. Stray shower or thunderstorm is possible. That's later. High of 84. Winds light and variable. It's going to be a sunny day at noon, baby. The sun will be shining high at Memorial Stadium on Saturday. National TV audience. It's going to be fun. It should be lots of fun.
But like you said, it will be interesting to see how all phases perform. Certainly special teams was great against Idaho, but this is a different animal in terms of talent across the board. I mean, Idaho was a very thin team, and that showed up on special teams. You looked at their roster; it didn't seem like they brought a lot of people. I think with a team like Cincinnati, you can't bank on making those big time special teams plays. You're going to have to do it with offense. You're going to have to do it with defense. And you're going to have to throw the football a little downfield, too. That was certainly an issue, at least with Michael Penix last week, in terms of, kind of dinking and dunking. But we're so used to him connecting on those deep balls, and that has not happened through the first 2 weeks of the season.
Well, Kevin Wyatt's backing you up. He said he arrived at the Cincinnati game at 3 for a 7:30 game, and he had to park across the highway at the church, which is on the north side. Furthest walk you can have to the stadium. Well, I guess that's not true. But anyway, can only imagine parking for Cincy. So, yeah. Now, did you have a pass, Wyatt? Did you have a parking pass, Wyatt? That's my question. Or were you looking for parking when you arrived? That's a question. If you have a parking.
Yeah, he was probably looking for parking because I got there at 5 and I still, with my pass, it worked. Yeah.
Yeah, I got there. I'm thinking it was an hour and a half before. And so, yeah. But you've got the grass lots. A lot of people are over there in those grass lots as well. So we'll see. Tim, so we got to take a break. We'll do that real quick. And we'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by the great folks at Southern Stone Restaurants and Andy Moore Honda. Looking for a meal, head out to Southern Stone. It's at Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington. Great food. We'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans.
Good morning, Mike.
There he is.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hey, Jim.
Coffee.
Had to get some more coffee. Closed it. How was your weekend, sir?
Good. Weather was good. Steelers won. Can't ask for much more.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even get to see that because I was actually at a Colts game, so I didn't get to see any big upsets in football over the weekend.
The Steelers won?
Yeah, nothing really too crazy, you know.
Except for last night's ending, man. I cannot believe I stayed up to watch that game, too.
I had it on my phone while I was laying in bed, and I fell asleep like 6 times, but I did wake up to see the end when Lamar fumbled and the Raiders couldn't get the field goal kicker on in time. Oh, what a fiasco!
Had to take a delay of game, and then run the offense back onto the field to run a play.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I thought they
that
were like
was the craziest ending. From 3 minutes, maybe from 4 minutes to go in the game because Baltimore scores. Lamar's over there. He's off smiling and happy. No, then they let them just come right down the field.
Yep.
And I watched the I hate to not talk about this when we get on, but the Peyton and Eli broadcast.
Yes, I will confess that I did not watch any of that.
I thought it was funny just because Peyton Manning. He's able to. I mean, him and Eli were going at it. And Eli is saying, you need some powder on that forehead, man. You look like you got some been spraying Pam on it. I mean, it's like a little comedy show. I had Ray Lewis on as a guest, and he'd leave, and then they had Russell Wilson on.
Travis Kelce was on there, from what I heard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, got a few more seconds, or like 50 seconds. I know the first break is a little more lengthy now, so it seems longer, but we'll be back in about 45.
Well, yeah. Cincinnati's a top 10 team.
What are you reading? A comment?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'll put it up when we come back. Asking if beating Cincinnati would make up for the poor effort against Iowa. And I'm like, oh, certainly. Iowa was a good team. They just beat a top 10 team on the road.
My future holds. Because you're my BFF. Banking friends forever.
Right now, get free checking with online banking. And all the products of big city banks with hometown service.
With First Federal, you can do that.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sillersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back on this Tuesday. It is a nice day out, man. We've got fall weather going on, and we've got Mike DeCourcy with us. Mike, how are you, sir?
I am well, Jim. Kevin, how are you guys?
Good morning.
Doing fine. Enjoyed the weekend. Football back in attendance. Went to games. Fans. I went to a Colts game. They stunk. Pittsburgh won, and then we had a great game last night that finished. Holy cow. We were talking about that earlier with Kevin. Lamar Jackson, and he's up, he's down, he's winning, he's not, he's about to exchange jerseys with the guy. They got to go back onto the field, run another play. They turn the ball over. Are you out of your mind? It's like, this is crazy. That's why NFL coaches have the problems they have medically and all of that. Trust me, and I know it's that game right there is just a cataclysm of what being a coach has to be like. I mean, you snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Whichever team you are, you're snatching victory or defeat from the jaws of victory, it seems, in that game.
Yeah, the NFL is so, it's designed to be balanced. It's one of the reasons why it's America's most popular game. And it's surprising to me that others don't understand that that's integral to its popularity. I mean, baseball allows the Dodgers and Yankees to buy every great player that comes onto the market and tilt the playing surface so severely. But football understands that people want to believe their team has a chance. And in the NFL, they do. Week 1, Pittsburgh's happy. Now Vegas is happy. There are people, Seattle's happy. But next week it can be completely different. The Colts could turn their thing around and go out and beat LA. And week 1 would be somewhat forgotten. That's the nature of the league. And so to be in charge of one of those teams and have to do that week after week, that is not a job that I would envy. I mean, you look at there are stories now, and I don't know, there are insider type, rumor type stories that Urban Meyer had a really difficult first week that went well beyond the fact that the Jaguars lost. That he really took it badly, that people inside the Jacksonville locker room are not happy with the comportment of their head coach. And that's happened before when you've seen college coaches who are used to winning, really.
And used to being the guy in their locker room.
And exactly. So the balance of power thing is a little different. And the fact that, you can in college football. I mean, how many games did Urban lose in his time at Ohio State? Like 6. He's guaranteed to lose 6 this year, and he'll probably lose 6 in the first 8 or 10 weeks.
I was going to say maybe in the first 6 weeks.
I'm trying to be generous here.
Well, he doesn't have Tebow, so he's down a man.
Well, you look Nick Saban with the Dolphins. You look Bobby Petrino. I mean, this league can really chew out college coaches. It can really, chew them up. And and like you said, not having the power balance, coaching players that make more money than you, it's a lot different.
Yeah, there's always been lots of conversation about when college coaches have gone to the NBA. More so, Billy Donovan has kind of calmed that down a little bit. Brad Stevens has calmed that down. But before those two guys went to the NBA, you had Rick Pitino and John Calipari, and there was always a lot of discussion about how difficult it was and how they couldn't handle it or whatever. And the reality was that it was even worse going in the opposite direction. That guys who coached in the NBA and then tried to come in and coach college did even worse. Their records, you got a guy like Bob Hill at Fordham. I think he had a 3-25 season. There haven't been any 3-win seasons by college coaches going to the NBA. So they're different styles of coaching, different modes of coaching. Like you said, different power balance. And I think the thing that applies to Urban in this case more than anything is just that idea of you're going to fail. Like the best NFL coaches fail, so to speak, lose 45% of the time. I mean, if you win 63, 64% of your games as an NFL head coach, you're great. I mean, you are. If you go over that, you're a legend. That's the nature of the business. In college, to be a legend, you got to be winning over 85% of your games.
Yeah, you can't schedule Murray State either.
Mercer. Leave that Alabama, the defending national champion, played Mercer this past weekend. Come on, man. There are wins out there that aren't named Mercer, right? I mean, of all the teams that should be staying on their level all the time, it should be Alabama.
I think the SEC is the absolute worst at that. They are god awful. And a few years ago, LSU got exactly what they deserved when they lost to Troy at home,
right?
In one of those games. And we've seen it at Michigan and App State. Every now and then it happens, very rarely, but you'll sure love it when you see it, when one of those ball games turn the wrong way. And a lot of times that's the end of a coach when that happens. It didn't happen at LSU. But, yeah, the SEC, and I think having those 4 non-con games is part of that. They just want to make money. Eventually, they'll be going to 9, hopefully. But, I think that – and I think the teams should not be allowed – FBS teams should not be allowed to play FCS teams. They used to not.
I don't think you can make a rule against that. It's restraint of trade or things like, that gets a whole other level of NCAA. But they just should have more self-respect than that. I mean, like if you're – okay, let's use this example. Like if you're Coastal Carolina, which is an FBS team, I mean, if they play Mercer, nobody cares. I mean, it's there because they're not that far removed from being Mercer, so that's okay. But if you're
Alabama, fans even care? I know that they show up, but do they really even care for that game? Because they're not going to see anything but a practice, basically.
It's kind of like that. It's kind of like NFL fans who go to an exhibition game and they're there for the experience, 1. And 2, just to maybe see, okay, can that third offensive tackle help us? The serious fans. Can that third offensive tackle help us if we have an injury or maybe a couple of years down the line? They're there to see that. And the other people who aren't serious fans are there for the afternoon in the sun and doing the chants and all that stuff. And that's all fine, but do it against a team on your level if you're Alabama. Ohio State played Oregon. Like, they didn't have to play Oregon over the weekend, and they got beat. And that's not the first time that's happened. They got beat by Oklahoma a few years ago, Virginia Tech a few years before that. They'll play their share of Miami of Ohio's and people like that. But again, they're staying on their level. And I think that a program like Alabama or Georgia or LSU, whoever, they should have more self-respect than to play an FCS team in a circumstance like that. There's money to be made against a team that's at least, like, if you want to play the 130th team, I'm not going to argue with that. But when you start playing teams down a level down below, I just don't think that's the right thing. That's not the right message for an Alabama to be sending.
We talked about this a little bit earlier. USC fires their coach, and the athletic director has a tight relationship with Luke Fickell at USC.
Yeah, let me say something about that, Jim. Okay, just because someone worked for somebody. Like, have you ever had a boss you didn't like? Like a boss hired you and you were glad you got hired and you worked your tail off and all that and you became successful. Does that mean you automatically loved the person who gave you that job? I think that is a step that authors, writers are taking in that. It's a supposition that maybe not necessarily true. I don't think, most of the people that have hired me, all of the people that have hired me, I have great respect for, and
he loves them all.
But not everybody has been, you don't love everybody that hired you. So I wouldn't immediately assume that Luke Fickell has a tight relationship with the SC athletic director. Maybe does, maybe doesn't. I've got people in Cincinnati who are friends of mine who know the program really, really well, who tend to think maybe the doesn't is more the case here. So I wouldn't assume that that's an automatic deal. I wouldn't say that it's not necessarily going to happen because Luke is terrific and he's done a great job at Cincinnati. But I don't automatically make assumptions about things simply because they happen to work for one another once before.
And don't forget, he turned down Michigan State, and Cincinnati's going to the Big 12. So I think there's
and he's got a family of like 5 kids or something.
And likes raising them there. Again, I'm not going to rule out him taking a job like SC because we don't know what kind of money they're going to stack up. Jimbo Fisher is probably the only coach of the last 15 years that I can think of, maybe even longer, that went from one elite job to a different job. Was at Florida State and all of a sudden picks up and moves to Texas A&M. Well, why did he do that? I mean, because they basically backed up a Brinks truck in front of his house and said, hey, if you hop on board now on the train to College Station, you can get all this money. And that was hard to turn down. Is SC going to do that? I think they're less inclined to do that for a couple of reasons. One, they don't have SEC money. They may have some big donors, but they don't have SEC money. And two, I think they're less inclined to unbalance the power in their athletic department to that degree, where you paid the football coach that much. What's Jimbo making? $8-9 million now? I mean, I don't see SC doing that. So a guy like Lincoln Riley, someone was trying to sell me as a candidate this morning. I don't buy that. And a guy like Fickle, I mean, they've done well for him at Cincinnati, and I think they can up his money now because even though the Big 12 money won't be what it is now, the broadcast money is unlikely to be what it is now with Texas and Oklahoma in the league. It still is likely to be significantly greater than what is coming out of the AAC right now.
Like, one more thing I'll say about Jimbo, though, that was a factor as well, along with the money, was FSU not building the facilities he wanted and them getting texted him. And I don't know if that's a situation with Cincinnati or not, but the infrastructure also, I think a lot of coaches look at that, like, what do you have around you that you can recruit to and so forth. And that factored into Jimbo's decision as well.
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati is not Alabama when it comes to facilities, but they've made the stadium on campus as nice as it can possibly be. They put $85-90 million into it just a few years ago. They have a practice indoor facility, a bubble that's convenient to them, and that is at least good enough that the NFL team, the Bengals, who refuse to build their own, have borrowed on occasion in the past. So he's got, I think for the level they all have been, they've got about as good a facilities as they could have. Whether there's some other aspect that they could continue to improve, they're kind of landlocked there. So building something, maybe they could replace the bubble with a structure that's more concrete, so to speak, literally and figuratively. But I think that they've done pretty well by him. I think there will be jobs that he's going to have a difficult time saying no to in the future. But I do know that he's exceedingly happy where he is right now.
Yeah, and we've seen that. We'll have to see how that plays out with this addition to the Big 12. Talking about Florida State, week one they nearly knock off Notre Dame. We think, oh man, Florida State must be back, and then they lose to Jacksonville State. Are you kidding me? I'm like, wow, I think I could have played for Jacksonville State out of high school. and I'm like, man, but Dion is there, right?
No, Dion is at Jackson State.
Jackson State, okay.
See, Jacksonville State has a real identity problem. See, you just confused them with Jackson State, and most people think that Jacksonville State is in Florida, which it is not. It's in Alabama. So real identity crisis for Jacksonville State. They could probably use a name change.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone had said that yesterday. I'm like, is he really? I didn't realize that. But that game, I cannot believe they dropped that egg. They followed that up with that loss because they looked pretty good against Notre Dame. But then that begs the question: what's Notre Dame like? They haven't looked good along the way. And then they've got Purdue this week. Purdue could use a win like that, like no one else in the world. So that brings that storyline around. So there's all kinds of. This football season is not. COVID did not give us a true identity of some of these teams last year, and I think that we're seeing some differences this year. Indiana's offense has not been what we thought it was going to be, and is still yet to get there. So this football season's already been a little fun.
Yeah, and you mentioned Notre Dame for the next 3 weeks. They've got a really challenging schedule. You mentioned Purdue. Next week after that, it's Wisconsin. And then the week after that, it's Cincinnati. So we'll know for sure about what the Irish are capable of in 3 weeks. And then the Hoosiers, as I mentioned, Cincinnati, we've been talking about Luke Fickell. The Bearcats come in here to Bloomington this week. And it's obviously an essential game for both sides. Cincinnati can win their league without it, but they can't get to where they want to go. Where, by the way, as everyone knows, I'm on the record of saying even if they beat Indiana and they beat Notre Dame and win all the rest of their games, they're still not getting there. But they still want to put their best case forward and have that as an opportunity. And so that's a huge game for them, and it's an opportunity for the Hoosiers to, as you guys were discussing in the break, this is an opportunity for them although it wouldn't have an impact on the Big Ten race, they could erase a lot of the disappointment of the first loss and the second, the winning performance from the first 2 weeks by handling the Bearcats. If they're able to do that, a lot of what went wrong in the first 2 weeks would be reversed.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more. Mike DeCourcy with us, back to Indiana Sports Beat right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for...
Mike, what do you have that you're working on?
Working on a lot of long-term type stuff that I can't
or anything that you want or can get into that you want to talk about.
Yeah. Not this week, next week. I think I will have a soccer story. Let me see if it's up yet.
Is it about Ted Lasso?
No. Yeah, I'm going to have a soccer story about the young kid, Ricardo Pepi, who scored the winning goal down in Honduras. Just about, does he establish himself as the number one striker? So we can mention that, but most of the other stuff is longer term and not ready to talk about yet.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
Man, oh, man, oh, man.
It's going to be a short week.
What do you think about the Hoosiers on Saturday, Kev?
It's kind of, I think they're going to have to win with defense, basically, especially, because I just don't think Penix is right. And I don't know what it is, or if it's just the timing, or just coming off the injury. He just doesn't seem like himself, and that's a big problem. But they still have a good enough defense where they can keep it close and possibly win the game. And maybe if Carr runs the ball well, and but they just, I don't know. The offense is
cannot turn the ball over. Cincinnati had 5 takeaways in their last game, mostly in the second half. A lot of 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. Scored 40 points in the second half.
Save this for the show so I can clip this stuff. Indiana Cincinnati talk. Just saying.
What else was I going to say? Oh.
Where do you guys stand on jerseys? Like, you see I wear gear all the time, right? But I refuse to wear jerseys.
I've never owned a jersey in my life.
Yeah, I did.
Other than my own.
I
have never owned someone else's jersey in my life. I just have never felt the need to wear somebody else's jersey. I'm like, that's just not.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like the adult thing to do, right?
Like,
hold on, we'll carry this on.
Now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Yogi's Bar and Grill. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you on this Tuesday. The great Mike DeCourcy's with us, Kevin Brockway, CNHI as well. In the break, Mike brought up a great topic, jerseys. And I said, I have never owned a jersey other than one of my own in my life, and definitely have never worn another jersey. Not that I care when people do it. It's just, that's not me. I like Mike said, I'll wear a Colts shirt or a Rams shirt or a Cincinnati Reds shirt. I don't even have players of those teams or anything. So even of the pro teams that I had followed or liked or whatever, just some of their stuff, but I don't even have a lot of anything, to be honest with you.
Well, if you saw my closet, like I have a whole rack that is almost exclusively team
Pittsburgh.
gear. It's a lot of different things. It's mostly Steelers, Penguins, some U.S. soccer, a little bit of Liverpool. That's harder to get. But I have a whole, but none of it, not once, not one item of it. There is one Liverpool jersey which is nameless on the back, and I almost never wear it. But that's like where I draw the line. I don't wear somebody else's jersey. I know that, I'm not casting any aspersions on anybody who does. But personally, for me, it just is where I draw the line. I don't know how you feel.
I'm the same way.
How about you?
A lot of people love it.
Well, Ron Darling, it was interesting because remember a couple of months ago, the Mets, Ron Darling got on adults for wearing jerseys. Like, there's a certain cutoff age where you shouldn't wear somebody else's jersey. Now, Mike, Will Graves. He's a friend of mine. He's a Pittsburgh writer for the Associated Press.
Yes.
I was a groomsman in his wedding. We were close friends when we worked in Naples and remained close friends. So as a groomsman gift, he gave me a custom New York Jets jersey with my nickname, which back in Naples, they called me K-Bro on the back of the jersey. And
that's different.
Yeah.
But that's different.
Yeah. And I still wear that when I go out to watch Jets games. I wear that jersey.
I was having this conversation just the other day, as a matter of fact. Here, someone had bought his son. Well, it was the son. It was talking to me. He felt a little awkward because he was wearing a Hoosiers football jersey with his name on the back. And I was having that conversation. I said, well, with your name on the back, it's not that big of a deal. I said, you didn't play for him, so I don't know if that is different. But with my own name on it, maybe that's different. But I was just having that conversation with that guy. That's odd. This is Saturday.
With something like that, with the sentiment that goes along with that, that I can respect that. That's pretty awesome that he went ahead and did that. And so I would never, like I said, it's not really me casting aspersions on those who do, like in the way that Darling did, but it's just, for me, it just never felt right.
It's amazing that it's 16 years old and I still wear it. I keep on waiting for it to fall apart, or the name to fall off or something like that. It hasn't yet. So.
Yeah, how about NASCAR? Man, this year they could be driving a 27 car, and next year they could be in a different car, and everything has changed, and all that. You talk about gear, man. NASCAR sells some gear.
Yes.
That's what they're built on, man. All those T-shirts and all that. There may not be another sport that tries to sell merchandise more than NASCAR.
Soccer does. That's why soccer changes their uniforms every year just to try to get you to go out and buy the new jersey.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They do it every year. Like Liverpool's jersey from this year. I mean, they're all similar. I mean, they don't change the basic, but they change little things about it to try to get you to go out and buy another one. And of course, when someone like PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, signs a guy like Messi, some of what they expect to recoup on that is people buying Messi's jersey. They expect to make enough money on selling his jersey in a Paris Saint-Germain crest to at least offset some of what it costs to sign him and pay him.
What about IU basketball jerseys? Since they're nameless, they only have numbers. They only have numbers.
Category. We're going to have that discussion one of these days, because that is one of my biggest pet peeves in all of sports, is the colleges that don't put the names on the back of the jerseys. I absolutely hate it. It is such, I know it's tradition and all. I hate it as a consumer of tons of sports. I hate when I'm watching a game and somebody makes a play, and instead of being able to say, oh, that's John Smith. Well, okay, so I can look him up, and where's he from? And all I can look up is, oh, that's number 1. That drives me nuts. I think it's a disservice to the athlete and to the consumer, and I'm not a fan.
Why they used to do it, because they claimed they didn't want to quote unquote exploit the athletes by.
Oh gosh,
they wanted to sell programs, man.
Yeah,
to sell programs. There you go. And the funny thing about that is, and I use this stat a lot in basketball to try to convince everybody who doesn't do it that they're in the wrong. There has been we're now up to, I think,
1986,
33 years,
1988,
Kansas, because Kansas didn't. They had this odd dichotomy where you had your name on your jersey at home, but not on the road, and they were the 6 seed playing 1 seed Oklahoma. So in the championship game, they did not have their names on the back of the jerseys. Before that, it was IU in 87. So you have to go all the way back that far to find an NCAA men's basketball champion without the names on the back of the jersey. So warning to all those who continue to obey that tradition, that's keeping you out of the winner's circle.
Oh, that was a good comment by Tony Stuckey. I met him at the tailgate. Really nice guy.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm so over the tradition thing. That's a load of crap. It's a load of tradition only. It's a tradition only because they just simply haven't done it. It's not a tradition. If it was a tradition, they wouldn't do it in football. They do it in football because it's necessary. And I'm so over. I'm just so over it. It's dumb. It makes no difference to me if their name's on the jersey. I couldn't care less. That does not affect their play, does not change anything. And it's a lot better for casual viewers, for TV viewers, for everything. And it's pointless. And I think the players prefer that.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that are busting their butts, putting in the hard work. So they should have more say than anybody.
I do. I haven't heard this discussed at all, but I wonder if in an NIL world, a name, image, and likeness world, whether that's an issue, like whether athletes are going to say, look, how do I capitalize on my NIL if all I am is a number? Maybe that becomes an issue, and so more teams go away from that. I don't think there's any grand tradition there. The candy stripe pants,
yes,
Martha the Mop Lady singing down the hall, all that stuff, man, that is tradition. The no names on the back of the jerseys, not buying that.
No, and I asked this question to someone. I said, let me ask you this. If you had 3 jerseys up there with the number 11 on there, and one of them had Thomas on the back, and you had a number 3 or 2 number 3s, and one had Edwards on the back, and you had 2 40s, and one had Chaney on the back, which of those jerseys are going to sell more? The blank 40 or the Chaney 40? The blank 11 or the Thomas 11? The blank 3 or the Edwards 3? Every time, I guarantee you, the named jerseys are going to sell over the nameless jerseys.
Yeah, that's definitely true. That's something that that again, former athletes can sort of start to pay them back a little bit, especially now with NIL. They could do that. It'd be nice to see. I would like just about everybody. I would like everybody to make that change, because I do think it's better for the athlete, better for the viewer. I'm all for it. And again, I am all for tradition. I love tradition in college sports. I did a thing a year ago that sort of got revisited last week when the opening of college football season, and everybody was excited to see Wisconsin do the Jump Around song. And that video got really shared. And I had written an article last fall about the best of those circumstances. And named Virginia Tech, Enter Sandman, with Metallica as the number 1 stadium song, and Jump Around, I think, was number 3, something like that. Those things are great. They're wonderful for college sports, pro sports. The Steelers with Renegade, playing that in the fourth quarter when they need a big defensive stop. I mean, let me tell you, when they have a game, hopefully, they're in a circumstance where they can play it on Sunday, and the fans will go crazy for that, because a chance to participate in that tradition that they have for so many years but didn't get to a year ago. That's really cool. But the name on the back of the jersey, again, that's never struck me as a true tradition.
Yeah, the William Tell overture at Indiana games is pretty cool. The one at the third quarter, that's a pretty neat. I think that's a pretty neat tradition.
I got to say, we just got a comment from Sam, and I'm not sure whether we want to read it out loud, but let me tell you, I love it.
I started laughing when I saw it. Yeah. He says, you want to get an 11 with Thomas on it, so you make no mistakes that it's not Dockett's or another former number 11. So there you go. Now, Forrest said, if you can't remember,
north, he's not
there. There you go. Up north, east. Forrest says, now, if you can't remember 13 names, you're not a fan. I don't think it has anything to do with that. It goes so far beyond that.
It's not about the Indiana fans, the people who are Indiana fans. It's about the people who are playing Indiana against Indiana and say, wow, who was that guy? Or also, who might become Indiana fans? Who see the team and they don't know who any of the players are, because
it makes pictures better. It just makes everything better.
Absolutely.
I mean, I would that picture of AJ Moye blocking Carlos Boozer in 2002. The names on the back, that makes it better to me. I mean, because it just that's just one of my favorite all-time sports pictures ever. But it just that Muhammad Ali standing over Sonny Liston. Those are just some of my greatest sports photogs.
Indianapolis native Oscar Robertson with the split after the rebound. How about that one? Still can't figure out how that happened. No idea how anybody could do that, let alone how it happened in the game. But it's an amazing picture.
One of the greatest ever, and it's how 50, 60, 70 years old, or no, 60 something years old. That picture probably is,
yeah,
crazy, nuts. I know we talk about jersey. The only jersey I would wear, I meant to say this, is Roy Kent. So you have to watch Ted Lasso to know who that is. But I would wear Roy Kent's jersey. That's the only jersey I would wear.
I will say that I cannot see him on the screen without laughing. That character is so beautifully written and so beautifully performed. If you haven't,
are you talking about Roy Kent?
Yes, Roy Kent.
I can't either. I mean, he didn't even have to say a word. And
exactly. He comes on the screen and I start to laugh.
I guarantee it.
And there's I wondered about this and I looked it up yesterday. There was a soccer player named Roy Keane who played for Manchester United. He was from Ireland and who was a notorious. He was notorious for his temper and even wound up leaving or being removed from the Ireland World Cup team in 2002, just before it happened, because of some sort of tete-a-tete with the management of the Ireland team. I mean, it was, and so when I watch, I'm like, is that where it came from? Is that where the inspiration for Roy Kent came from? And according to Google, it does seem to be the case. I've not seen it addressed by either of the two creators, but it does seem like that's where the idea for the character came from. But obviously, the actor who plays Roy Kent has taken it and elevated it. It is, man. If you're a fan of the show, if you're not a fan of the show, I highly encourage you to at least get Apple TV long enough to watch all of the episodes. We're up through, I think, 8 episodes of season 2.
That's the last ones. That's of the season 2, I think.
Is that just the last one?
I think.
Gosh, I could take them all, right?
I thought there was a lot more last year.
Yeah, I thought there were 10, but maybe there were only 8. It's been a while. Everything, all the counting got thrown off in the pandemic. But if you haven't seen it yet, it's a fabulous show and highly recommend it.
And I would wear a Roy Kent jersey on the record, just for that. But I know you've got some things you're working on in the future coming out. Mike, what do you got coming?
I think the next thing you'll see is just in the wake of the September qualifying window for the World Cup for CONCACAF, a look at the striker position, the position in soccer that everybody sort of looks at first. Who scores the goals? And did Ricardo Pepe, with his beautiful performance at Honduras, lock up the number 1 spot when we get around to the October qualifiers? There'll be 3 in October, early October, including 1 in Texas against Jamaica and 1 in Columbus against Costa Rica, and then a road game down in Panama in between. Does he lock? Unlikely he starts all 3 of those games, but will he be the starter in 2 of the 3? Will he be the primary guy? He's only 18 years old. It's a lot to throw on him, but he really played well in that game, especially the second half, and showed a lot of promise at a position that the U.S. It's the one position the U.S. does not have. It has a lot of options, but no great established players at this point.
Quick comment from Pete. It's a little off topic, but since NIL came in the conversation, Gabe Stevenson, University of U of M wrestling from Portage, Indiana, originally Olympic gold, signed with WWE and can still wrestle at Michigan.
Yes, because let's be honest with you, they are not the same sports. So
That's right.
I'm glad he's going to make big dollars for WWE. It's not the same sport when he goes.
Isn't that like going into acting? would that like be going into acting, basically?
Kind of, sort of, yeah, exactly. And there have been in the past for bad reasons that they really misinterpret the rules. Athletes who are actors who struggled to get the opportunity. I believe that Darnell Autry from Northwestern was an actor who struggled to get approval to do a film project. That was I believe that was the player. I could be wrong on that, but I remember that there was a case of an actor. And of course, Northwestern has an unbelievable drama school that's produced so many great performers, and he struggled to get that. So now, good, one of the wonderful things about NIL, if you have someone like that who has that ability in multiple areas, they can take advantage of that now, as they should.
Well, The Rock,
Absolutely.
Wayne Johnson, I went to school with at the University of Miami. He was a football player for a couple of years before he went on to his,
yes, he was a good football player. Absolutely.
He was decent. He wasn't as good as he was, like kind of a reserve defensive lineman. He wasn't Russell Maryland or Cortez Kennedy.
Right. Not an All-American, but, you're playing for that team at that time. You had to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, I think we just spilled the Santa Claus beans for Tony. He said, "What are you suggesting? The WWE is staged, predetermined sports entertainment?"
I don't mean to break your heart, Tony.
Wasn't
Maybe
like
a
Bob
possibility.
Backlund, though, like a college wrestler? There have been some guys that have transitioned, like there's been some to WWE or something like that. Yeah.
Yes, Kurt Angle was a gold medalist in super heavyweight or whatever from Mount Lebanon, Pennsylvania, close to where I grew up, very close. And he was a All-American wrestler and then, of course, a gold medalist. And, now obviously I believe he's retired from WWE, but had a great career with them.
Brock Lesnar, I believe. Yeah. All right. Well, Mike, that's your cue. There's your cue. We appreciate you. Hope you have a great rest of your week. Look forward to talking to you next week, man.
Thanks,
have a good
guys.
weekend. Thank you. The great Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News, Big Ten Network, and Fox with us. Up next, Chronic Hoosier here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're back with that right after this break.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans. That was fun.
That was, yeah. Good segment.
Chronic, what's up?
What's going on? Glad to be back.
Man, we're talking about Easter Bunny and WWE and
all sorts of crazy stuff.
Got all kinds of crap going on. But it's all good. Weather's good. Sold out stadium this week.
Victory flag is flying. It's as good as you can hope for.
That it is. I hope if that stays up there this week, boy, that's going to be gigantic.
Yeah, they need to win here to get everything back on track from an expectation standpoint.
Yeah, that loss would hurt.
That takes a lot of wind out of the sails that they've, all the momentum they've gained here in the last couple of years. You got to show that you deserve the accolades,
especially with a full house.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And a full house that will likely be predominantly Indiana fans and not the opposite team sometimes, like it normally happens.
I was going online last night trying to read up on Cincinnati, and on some of the boards, people are asking, "Hey, have you gotten your tickets from Cincinnati? Your IU tickets from Cincinnati yet?" And they're like, "No, me either." So they got some peeps coming.
I think we'll see a pretty good crowd.
Oh, yeah, I was at the Colts game Sunday, and I was shocked how many freaking Seahawk fans there were there. I mean, they were every time they do something good. I'm like, the first time I was like, "What the hell?" I leaned up. I'm like, "Where's that noise coming from?" It was loud for them.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be quite the numbers you normally see, like when Ohio State comes to town. But they've had enough buzz around that program for long enough now that I think they're going to travel in pretty good numbers.
It'll be a good one. I saw someone ask.
It's not that far of a trip,
Oh yeah, and I saw someone ask. It's been a while since we've traveled to Indiana. What should we expect? A good crowd or hostile?
That's the one thing. All the fans I've talked to that visit, Indiana fans are pretty hospitable. I mean, and part of it's just humility of being an IU football fan. Yeah. But part of it's just, it's the Midwestern hospitality. Normally it's the other way around. It's normally the visiting fans that I see raising all sorts of shit.
Are Indiana basketball fans hospitable?
No.
That's a different
not
beast.
at all. Yep, that's a different crowd altogether. And I mean a different crowd altogether.
All right, here we go. Street and Indy have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurant, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Tuesday. Kevin Brockway with me from CNH Papers as always, and joined as usual by Chronic Hoosier. Chronic, how are you, brother?
Glad to be back, man. It hadn't been that usual here lately. I apologize for the couple weeks of absences here. My post-op recovery has gotten in the way, but feeling better. Glad to be back. Glad to have a win in the column and the victory flag flying over Bloomington this week.
How's the knee? How is the knee?
I'm doing awesome. I'm doing absolutely awesome. I got a bend in it that got me on the bike now, so I'm able to get some spin time in. Every day get stronger. Every day recognize just how weak those muscles have gotten, but we are well on the road to recovery. Still targeting that Rose Bowl full participation.
I was going to say, when's the expectation of returning to play? Week 8, 9, 10? What are we? So we're even deeper than that.
It's so much of what I've read. I'm 6 to 12 months back, from being back to fully normal.
Wow.
But so far, I have been well ahead of the curve on the recovery schedule. So super fortunate for that. Super fortunate for the whole team over at IU Sports Health or Sports Medicine and Ortho. They have been absolutely amazing in helping get me right. So glad to be upright and moving around. Glad to be able to see IU football win some games here.
Absolutely. Things are taking shape. I'm glad to see that you're on the mend, and and the football program a little bit back on where they needed to be last week. Of course, defense and special team looked absolutely incredible. They're going to have to carry that kind of effort this week because Cincinnati is a team that, although they were tied with Murray State 7-7 at the half last Saturday, they scored 40 second half points to win that game, 47-7. Most teams can't manufacture that many second half points. It's usually you go out and you wear down a little bit. Man, to be able to put up that many points in a second half, that's a lot of points.
Now, there's no doubt they are a very, very potent and formidable opponent for Indiana coming up this week. This is going to be where I think we get a sense of where Indiana truly stands this season. I'm still willing to kind of chalk the Iowa loss up as some first week stumbles. I felt like they got punched in the mouth early and never really got their legs back underneath them. That was a pretty abysmal performance. And as good as it felt to get that win against Idaho, I don't know that we necessarily learned anything earth-shattering about the team simply because the level of opponent. The one thing that I took from it is they showed up all three phases, looked pretty focused in on executing what they were supposed to be doing. As you mentioned, particularly the defense and the special teams. It was kind of a wonky game. The field position kind of skewed some of the stats, I felt like, gave Penix and the offense a pretty short field on par for the game. And, Michael had a couple of nice passes. The touchdown pass to Swinton was a pretty nice touch. Felt like he underthrew the Freifogel touchdown pretty bad, but Ty made a nice recovery to get underneath it. But more than anything, it just gave the offense some live snaps where they could get a better feel for what they're trying to do, and hopefully they have a solid week of practice because they're going to have to bring it. We need to see just how far back along Michael Penix is in his recovery, just how well the offense is able to gel. Zach and I cut a pod last week that never saw the light of day, apparently. But, my whole thing was, the main goals from the Iowa game, get them in rhythm, give them some positive things to see on tape, and for the most part, keep everybody healthy without opening up too much of the playbook. And I felt like as far as those goals were, they achieved most of them, with a little bit of question still remaining on just how comfortable Michael is back in the pocket now. So rubber's going to hit the road this Saturday at noon. That's for sure. We'll see exactly where this team stands against a high quality opponent here.
Yeah, Kevin, one of the things I was thinking about yesterday, and I didn't ask it, but how quick would Tom Allen bring in? At what point would it take to bring in Jack Tuttle of Michael's performance? What has to happen for that to change, for him to bring him in? Because you at some point, if production's not there, that's a decision. It has to be made. You've got a guy that played most of the games last year and has played in both games this year on the sideline. So that's a question that could come up.
I would think if he had like a first half like he did against Iowa, you could see Jack come in the second half. But I think that Tom is still committed to Mike because of the arm talent, because he sees it every day in practice. I think it's just a matter of the decision-making, the timing, which has been off pretty much since the beginning of the season. But showed some signs on short routes. And listen, the Freifogel, I mean, there was another deep ball that, Freifogel maybe he admitted if he timed his leap better, maybe he would have had. So there were some opportunities that were kind of left out there as well.
Well, Ed says that he saw a power ranking in the Big Ten and they have IU 11th. I saw another yesterday that had, I don't know where they were, but they were behind Maryland and Rutgers. And I'm like, I don't care where they're ranked. It doesn't matter to me. But I thought it was ridiculous. You can't put an Indiana team behind Rutgers and Maryland right now because they lost to a top 5 Iowa team, even though they looked poorly doing it. It was week 1. But they have to get things turned around this week offensively. They have to be on game. The defense is going to have to set the tone. Tom Allen said that he's going to expect them to set the tone. And if they play like they did last week, that's going to be great, especially with special teams. But you can't count on that all the time, Chronic.
No, absolutely. And I think that was the biggest thing was, just giving them some positive experiences so that they have, some confidence, some momentum heading into the Cincinnati game. You talk about the power rankings right now, the sample set that those are based off of is so small. And obviously IU's performance to open the season against Iowa was so abysmal that those are pretty skewed right now just because there's so little to take away from what IU's done this season. This is the one I think where we, you get a true barometer of exactly where the Hoosiers stand. Another top 10 opponent. They've had a chance to shake the rust out. They've had a chance to experiment with some combinations. That being said, it does not seem that the offensive line is necessarily set as far as what composition, who's going to be where, at what depth chart. So that's certainly something that's a little concerning because for all the focus on Penix, you have to correlate those two things as one and the same, because if the offensive line is not inspiring confidence, it's going to be really hard to get that quarterback settled back there in the pocket. So that's going to certainly be a key for Indiana right now, is figuring out what's going to work best up front and lock that in. And those guys certainly, while they look good in establishing the running game, they look decent in pass protect against the Vandals. You got a whole different kind of beast coming in this weekend in a team like Cincinnati. So they got to shore that up front real quick if they want to get Penix back to 100% mentally in the pocket right now, because I certainly have some reservations and I certainly am nowhere near those defensive linemen and linebackers and secondary coming in blitzing. So they got to prove to their quarterback that they're going to be able to keep him protected in order to let him get right in the head as the season moves on here.
Yeah, Mike didn't always have the cleanest pocket in that Idaho game. He did get sacked twice, and you don't know. I mean, moving Matthew Bedford inside is interesting. With a little bit of the run blocking at right guard. I know when Penix had his quarterback sneak, he ran behind him, and they probably did some better things run blocking. But I mean, the pass protection, to me, Chronic, is still a little shaky.
Pass protection, and they look good against the Vandals as far as establishing the run game. But that's like having a show-out performance against your JV team, to be quite honest. I don't know that you can put a lot of stock in that performance just based off the quality of the opponent. That said, it did give them the opportunity to experiment a little bit. Caleb Jones keeps bouncing from side to side of the line. It doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, though, to continue to see that shuffling happening up front. So hopefully they get that figured out this week. Hopefully there's a more consistent rotation as far as where guys are going to be placed and who's going to step up here. Because quite frankly, we saw it against Idaho. It's a different ball game when Indiana's able to establish the run. It gives them a balance. It gives them a far more open field to work with in the passing game when they can get that established early. Now, it's going to be a big test whether or not they can achieve similar results against a top 10 opponent. And honestly, that's going to set the table for the remainder of the schedule going forward here, because it gets real quick here after this weekend for Indiana, getting into the heart of the Big Ten schedule. Still got Western Kentucky to come, and but you know what? That's certainly no slouch like it looked like when they first put that one on the books.
Ross talked about special teams and said he's waiting for the punting to cost them a game. I think that the punting unit getting better as it goes along. Of course, Indiana has gotten on this run of bringing in the kids from down under who have never really played football before, but have great leg talent. And this is one of those cases where the punter had never played a football game prior to going to Iowa City. So can you imagine playing your first football game in Iowa City in front of 80,000 people?
Yeah, that's trial by fire. There's no doubt about it. And for a lot of these guys, you have a lot of young players on this team who got to experience their first season either with the team or their first season in the rotation in an environment where you didn't have hostile crowds and all the trappings that come with game day. And it's been a reacclimation period for a lot of guys on that roster, having to show up to the full fanfare and the pageantry of the game day experience once you've got fans back in the stadium, and the noise and just all the obstacles to your execution. So hopefully they've had a chance to iron out all those wrinkles now and get everybody settled and really lock into the task at hand with the top 10 team coming to a sold out Memorial Stadium this weekend.
Yeah, and how special that Memorial Stadium doesn't get sold out very often, and if ever, for a non-Michigan or Ohio State game. As a matter of fact, I've talked about this several times. This is the biggest non-conference game Indiana has hosted in over 40 years. It's gigantic. Of course, it was not intended to be that way when it was scheduled. Cincinnati was just Cincinnati then, but now it is a top 10 opportunity for Indiana, national television audience. They have so much opportunity here that they really cannot afford to waste this.
No, it is the superlative of the high risk, high reward type matchup for Indiana. After that early stumble against Iowa, obviously fell out of the rankings, but still in a position where they're receiving votes. People still want to believe in Indiana, but they have got to prove that is deserved at this point. And this is a game that has the potential to vault them well back into the top 25. It also is the type of game that has potential to basically bury them in the polls. Having dropped 2 top 20 matchups to start the season, where it's going to be really hard to earn that respect back without some pretty significant wins, thereafter. So there's a whole lot at stake. From a personal standpoint, I felt like Indiana lost a lot of respect just in how badly they played at Iowa. The execution was just abysmal on the offensive and on the special teams front. I don't think it's lost for good. But it certainly took a lot of wind out of their sails. And this is one of those games where you can either get it back or you can basically fold up from a respect standpoint and basically have to reset the clock as far as how this team is being viewed in its ascension into the Big Ten competitive spheres.
And football is such a momentum game too, and if you win this game, you get that belief back in yourself, I think. And if you lose this game, then Tom Allen and that staff is going to have to get a really hard job getting them back to believe in themselves. And that correlates with effort and it correlates with everything. I mean, it makes it that much harder.
And, this is a fan base that just 3 games ago, going back into the next season, before that bowl game, was very vociferously arguing that they deserved a New Year's Six bowl game last year. And, they certainly had some stats to back it up. And obviously that went out the window with the college football playoff committee. And then, it was proven to be a wise move the way they handled Mississippi. And then, to squander that against Iowa with just such an abysmal performance, it really didn't do themselves any favors from a PR standpoint. And the way college football is, yes, it's it's a scoreboard type game, but it's very much a popularity contest as far as the polls are concerned. We can debate till the cows come home whether or not polls matter, but at the end of the day, they weight those decisions when it comes to bowl selection, when it comes to bowl placement and things of those matters. So it certainly would do them a world of good to net themselves a top 10 win here against Cincinnati, get some of that respect back, but more than anything, get some confidence back in the locker room, get some confidence back in the fan base that this is a team with a high ceiling and is deserving of fan support in a full stadium like they've earned this weekend.
Yeah, last year you start off with a gigantic upset win at home over Penn State, so that catapults you into the season. And this year they start off with that gut-wrenching loss at Iowa, and really you come back with that, and that's not how you want to start the season. But now they've got to manufacture that, take what they can from last week, and go into this game, and they need to come out with a win. But this offensive line has really got to improve, Chronic. That's kind of where it starts and ends for this team, as far as being able to be productive or not. Even giving Michael Penix confidence, you got to give him a little time to let him get his confidence back, and he hasn't had a whole lot of that. Kevin?
Yeah, no, I alluded to that before. It's the pass protection right now, which is really lacking. And, you can counter that with short throws, and that's what Indiana did in that Idaho game. And that's another factor in the intermediate and the deep balls is having the time and the protection to do that, which, is something that Indiana is going to have to continue to establish as the season goes on. Penix was so good with those chunk plays last year, with those big plays. I mean, he led the Big Ten in explosive plays, passes 40, 30, 60 yards or more. It set the bar so high with regards to that.
But he also has some different receivers to throw to. Chronic, you with us?
Yeah, I think my face hit the mute button on us there. Sorry about that. The one thing I was trying to say before I realized I muted myself, that's the one thing we haven't seen from Penix since he returned from injury is reestablishing the deep ball. This is a quarterback who gives Indiana some of the best arm strength they've seen in a long, long time. And it's been the one element of the game that he's not been able to reestablish since that Indiana, it's not just Penix, that the offense in general hasn't really reestablished. Obviously, Jake Tuttle had a heck of a dime for that 75-yard touchdown, but that's really been about it as far as Indiana really trying to extend the field and get some deep balls into the offense. So it's going to be an important part of both Michael's return as well as giving the offense a little more dynamics to have to defend against. So hopefully that returns here soon, because right now with all the underneath stuff Indiana likes to mix in, it makes them a little flat, way easier to defend right now, knowing they're not quite as willing to stretch the field as what they were last season early on.
And even hitting guys in stride, 2 yards after catch. I think Freifogel, that first week against Iowa, he had a few, and certainly the A.J. Barner play with Tuttle, 48 yards after catch. But even those kind of plays would be good, where you hit a guy with an intermediate route on a crossing pattern in stride, and you get a big gain off it. It doesn't necessarily even have to be all the way down the field.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chronic, I know you said you all cut a pot last week, but it didn't make it out. When is your next effort going to happen?
That's a good dang question, Jim. I wish I could tell you. Today's the day where Zach and I touch base and figure out what the schedule looks like here. So hopefully we'll have one in the can soon. Fortunately, we've got my good friend Dustin Dopiriak is back with the Indy Star now, working the IU beat for the Herald Times in place of John Blau. So he's been able to fill in on the mic quite expertly, and it's taken a little bit of the burden off of me to help fill the air with Zach. But we'll get me back on there soon enough, and hopefully we have a big win to talk about next week when we all regroup here.
Well, brother, I hope the rehab continues, and we need to get you some food over there delivered to you.
Hey, that's one thing I have not been at a loss for. I promise you that. But I appreciate
brother, thank you. You betcha. Thank you, sir. The great Chronic Hoosier join us here on Indiana Sports Beat, brought to you by the great folks at Andy Moore Honda. Go to andymorehonda.com, order yours, and make sure it's there for you when you're ready for it to come in. Hey, we're back with more Indiana Sports Beat coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for
we were talking about uniforms. We can touch on those retro uniforms that Indiana's wearing this week too.
Oh, I didn't see that.
For the Cincinnati game, yeah.
The block eye helmets too. I'll pull them up to show you.
Yeah.
The 1980, the Bill Mallory style.
It's actually notice story on Indiana Rivals right now, Jim.
What's that? Look at that. Well, but look at that. The block eye. That's what I changed that logo to, a block eye with the state around it. They used to have that on the corner of the stadium. Bill Mallory days, baby.
A lot of people wish they would go back to do a game with the like the oval IU, like from the Antoine Randall L era.
That'll never happen.
Why is that?
It's not an IU logo. There's one IU logo. One.
Well, then what's the block eye?
Well, that was old.
Well, so is the oval.
No, it's not. That's from Cam Cameron. It was made up, never used again, never used before or again.
Interesting.
It was only used for the 3 years of the Cam Cameron era.
Cam Cameron.
Ever, never. And that's why it'll never be used again. It was, it's not. Yeah. Nope. Not going to happen.
What if they brought that Cam Cameron back as an offensive coordinator and offensive analyst?
That would probably be good because that's what he was great at.
Yeah.
What is he doing right now?
He's kind of hanging
counting
out
his money in San Diego.
Yeah. Got kids that go to USC and stuff.
Playing golf.
This is an odd picture, but I'll go ahead and show you what they look like.
Yeah.
What are you showing me? The helmet?
No, it's the jersey.
Full jersey. Yeah.
Full uniform.
Yeah. I don't see it all I see is from the jersey at waist up.
Yeah.
So your screen dark.
Try it again.
Real quick. Yep.
All I can see is from his waist up.
Yeah.
You can't see the helmet?
Yeah, I see the helmet, but what's different about the
shirt?
Like the format, like the lettering and everything. I mean, it's not like
that's the 80s. That's an 80s font.
Yeah.
Bill Mallory-esque.
Oh shoot, here we go. We got 5 seconds.
On it. Now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Brought to you by the great folks at andymorehonda.com. Go there, order your Honda, have it ready for you. And the great folks at Southern Stone Restaurant, located in Bloomington at Patterson and Rogers, home of the Indiana coaches shows for basketball and football, I should say. Looking forward to joining them there. Wednesday night, don't forget, 7:05, Don Fisher, Coach Tom Allen, the coaches show at Southern Stone.
You going to
go? Yes, I probably will. Hey, if you have problems snoring, are you a snorer? Aurora.
Yeah.
First of all, how do you know I'm a snorer?
Secondly, I shared a hotel room with you a couple of years ago. Yeah.
What were you doing listening to me snore then?
I was having trouble sleeping because you were snoring.
I was snoring because you were driving me nuts. Probably no. But I don't have that problem anymore because of Aurora Specialty Sleep. developed by former IU basketball player Steve Green, who's a dentist. Originally Bob Knight's first recruit, by the way, but also Brian Evans is part of that as well. But Aurora Specialty Sleep, located there in Indianapolis, check them out. It's not a, if you're using a CPAP and all that stuff, it's not, I can't say that it will replace that, but it has worked for me. And it is just a little oral device that you don't have to do all that business, but something worth checking out. Aurora Specialty Sleep, but because a lot of people have that problem, and this is a lot easier, man. You talk about carrying this around; it's like carrying around a set of teeth whitening trays, so a lot easier. We were talking about logos. Before we get to that, though, David Cattle says, get Steve Spurrier to take a look at the lack of creativity on offense and offer his opinion. He always has a bag full of gadget plays available, and I've never seen IU execute one. Steve Spurrier is a guy you could implement into a lot of stuff, man. He is funny. He's imaginative. He's creative. He's quick. He's smart. He's to the point, blunt. I love Steve Spurrier personally. You spent a lot of time around him, probably when you were covering.
I interviewed Steve before down in Gainesville. When I didn't cover him down there. It was a little bit after Zook, and Spurrier, another guy we alluded to before, though, went to the NFL. It didn't quite work out. He quarterbacks a lot of 7-step drops, but unbelievable with the crossing patterns. Some of his play designs were just amazing. And saw him, coach
Heisman Trophy winner. A lot of people don't realize this. Steve Spurrier was a Heisman Trophy winner. I know some of you know that, but did all of y'all know that as a player? Well, it's the only way you can win a Heisman as a player, but
exactly, yeah. No, as a Gator player, rather, he was a Gator player from Johnson City, Tennessee, that area. And I read one of his biographies. There's a guy, Buddy Martin, down there. I know, and it's amazing. You read one of Steve Spurrier's biographies, and it was kind of like an autobiography with him and Buddy Martin, and he was giving you play-by-play of like his high school baseball playoff games, like he knew it to a T in his like 60s and 70s. It's just amazing. He has like a memory like an elephant.
But that's why those minds are so great. That's why those coaches, they're just, I don't have one of those minds. And not only, it's not just about remembering things, but it's about remembering things for quick recall, for being able to implement it into other things and 1,000 other ways to use it. But just great minds, and he has one of those. And sometimes it can be used to be, sometimes you can use it as free shoo, very quick-witted. But yeah, he had a sharp tongue. If he wanted to cut somebody, he could slice them up very quickly. But yeah, I love Steve Spurrier. I got to be honest with you.
And yeah, he had a ton of lines. Yeah, he was great. Yeah, he referred to Nick Saban as the greatest recruiter of all time at Alabama, which was a little bit of a backhanded shot at some of their recruiting practices. But Steve, he was a great 3-sport athlete too, an exceptional basketball player, exceptional football player, baseball player. Probably could have went into any of those 3 sports, but went into football and was a punter and our kicker in college too, and just backed up John Brody for the San Francisco 49ers. And first quarterback of the Tampa Bay Bucks, the expansion year, went 0-16, probably got beat up pretty bad that year. Probably got sacked 1,000 times and survived, and then went into coaching.
David says some fresh eyes are needed. I think he's referring to the Indiana offense. I think there's some truth to that, but I don't know that it really matters about the play calling as much right now. If they can't block, if they can't do the things they need to do, I don't know that the play calling is the issue. It's the execution of the plays being called. You look
at what Kalen DeBoer is doing at Fresno State. I mean, they were kind of spoiled, and that was bad timing, him leaving. And then Tom Allen handing over the reins to Nick Sheridan, who was endorsed by Kalen DeBoer, but is still feeling his way. Second year as an offensive.
Well, what's Kalen DeBoer going to say, though? Let's be honest. What's he going to say? No, you don't hire him. He's not going to say that. He worked with the guy for a year, but I'm sorry. That doesn't Just because you work for a year under a great offensive coordinator does not make you a great offensive coordinator because you worked for 4 under one that was sucked. He was under Mike DeBoer for all that time at Indiana and before that at Tennessee. So you've got to get rid of all that bad crap. And 1 year with Kalen DeBoer to me doesn't do that.
I mean, they scored 35 against Ohio State. Ohio State's got a bad defense. It was exposed in the Oregon game the last 2 years. But the offense has shown signs of being in Nick's first year. He's shown signs of, but it like you said, it comes down to protection, the offensive line play, and establishing a running game too. But we know why Mike Hart left, because I mean he wanted that job and didn't work out, and they gave it to Nick, and Mike Hart went to Michigan now, back to his alma mater. Who knows how the offense would have been under Mike Hart? Would have been any better? Would it promoting from within, or should Tom Allen in retrospect have gone outside and hired a more established guy? That's the question.
Yes, absolutely. I said that then, and this is nothing against Nick Sheridan. I'm sorry, it's not. But at that time, that job as offensive coordinator with Indiana was red hot. Kalen DeBoer had that looking red hot, and you could have really gone and gotten a big time guy. And I think it would have made a difference. I think it would have been beneficial. I don't care if he's here for two years and moves on. You go get another one. Just like you got Kalen DeBoer. They're out there. And you just continue to get the good ones, the ones that you can see. But you cannot argue with Tom Allen's ways. They have worked for the most part. So things like this looks like things are being picked on. Not picking on it. I didn't agree with it then, and I don't agree with it now. But even with that aside, I don't care who the offensive coordinator at this moment. It could be me or you. If they're not blocking and open up holes and protecting Michael Penix, I don't care what's being called. You can call a dive play, and if you're not opening the hole, it doesn't matter. You can call a 5 and out, and if you're letting the line through and your quarterback can't see, it doesn't matter.
Well, so you're seeing some of these SEC programs. I don't know if it's as much as in the Big Ten, but the whole analyst thing, the veteran guy that you brought in, like Maryland brought in Ron Zook as an analyst, and now he's a special teams coach. Well, maybe you bring back a guy like Cam Cameron, like we were talking about, to be an offensive analyst, who was here, or someone to kind of, maybe help bring Nick along a little bit.
I think that would not be bad, but again, they've got to execute. Where's the execution? Where's that failure from? Is that on Darren Hiller, the offensive line coach? Because this is a veteran offensive line. Why they aren't producing, that's a question, Kevin. This is not a bunch of new guys thrown in there.
Yeah, but it's guys at new spots, like you said, and they're trying to figure out and getting the 5 best guys. And the Luke Haggard injury week 1, now you've got him back. You've moved Bedford inside. So I the center, Harry Kreider, that's Harry Kreider was one of your best offensive linemen last year too, and they're still trying to figure the center out. Is it going to be Dylan Powell? Is it eventually going to be Zach Carpenter? And it's interesting to me how you listen to different coaches. And Darren Hiller was talking last week about, the center and the guard spots are all interchangeable. I know Urban Meyer for a fact considers the center to be the most important offensive line position because they call the protections. You need someone cerebral. Take a look at a guy like Linderbaum at Iowa. I mean, that's a really important position, and it just doesn't seem like they value it here. They just say, it's interchangeable. No, you need a really good center. I mean, one thing to hike the ball, and another thing, you just need a guy that's really strong in there and really cerebral and that can establish that inside run game. And, I think Indiana's got to put a premium on that.
Absolutely. Hey, before I forget, if you're on Twitter and if you don't follow me, please give me a follow at Jim Coyle ISB. At Jim Coyle ISB. You can follow Kevin as well at Kevin Brockway G1. What's the G1?
I think it was for Gainesville back in the day. I'm going to have to change it eventually at some point. But have we talked about the retro uniforms yet on here? We were talking about during the break.
No, I was just getting ready. Where are we?
Era uniforms.
We'll do that. We'll do that when we come back. How about that? When we come back, we're going to talk about the retro look this week and uniforms in general and all that stuff and plenty more. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans.
Killing the boar.
Roy Kent. He's here. He's there. He's every effing where. Roy Kent.
I gotta get some socks and sneakers on because I gotta run right after for interviews.
My
sneakers
clip, I've got the Roy Kent jersey on there. Thought you might appreciate that.
Absolutely. Roy Kent. Roy Kent. He's here. He's there. He's every effing where. Roy Kent. Roy Kent. That's the chant they have for him.
I'm assuming they actually say the expletive in the show.
Yes, by all means.
The sneakers are downstairs. We're doing some kind of digging across the street at my apartment complex.
Looking for dead bodies.
They don't take my cable out, like a sewer line or something.
Looking for all the bodies you've got buried.
I know.
Yeah. Roy Kent. You got me saying that, and I don't even know the show.
You should play that coming back, but beep out the.
It's too late for that now, but man, do I have time?
Yeah.
Oh, I got 2 minutes. Let me see if I can find it with All right, let's see if this is it. So you want that to be like the song coming back?
You can't really hear it.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't playing off my laptop though, or the computer. It was playing off my phone.
Oh. You hear what they say though, right?
Yeah. Here, we'll try it out, and I'll bleep out the. I got to be quick though. Got a minute 18. All right, where does it start at? All right, I gotta really watch that though. All right, it's at 10 seconds. Let's see.
Nope. Hey, all right. Hello. Swap shop name, please.
All right, I've got it queued up to come back to, so, but I gotta watch it so I don't get the F.
Gotta watch it.
And I'm not going to play the whole now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios. I'm just going to come straight in with that. So it's not talking over it. All right.
It's a busy day. I get these stories.
And all the products of big city banks with hometown service.
With First Federal, you can do that.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Hey, welcome back. Roy Kent. He's here. He's there. Little Ted Lasso for you. How you doing? Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Tuesday. Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers with me as always. This weekend, Kevin mentioned early on that I lost it. But the retro jerseys for Indiana and retro via, does it say they look to be late 80s? Yep. The Hoosiers will be wearing retro jerseys, mirror those worn by Bill Mallory's team back from the 87 to 96 era. Uniforms are part of the Adidas retro collection, which were rolled out for numerous Adidas schools throughout the season. You can see the block eye with the white stripe, the black white pants with the bold red stripe on the side, with black alongside of that, black gloves, and the Hoosiers font. So reminiscent of AT, little Anthony Thompson action, baby.
Should be pretty cool. It's interesting how, and we were talking about this with jersey sales too, like why, and basketball has remained traditional all these years, whereas football, they'll change and they'll throw these things out there, but it'll be something good at the gift shop too. I'm sure maybe they'll sell some of these jerseys.
Yeah, some notable players that wore those mentioned. I mentioned 1989 Heisman Trophy runner-up and two-time Big Ten most valuable player Anthony Thompson. He set NCAA records for career rushing yards, career touchdowns, single game rushing yards during his career. Others, including Von Dunbar, he was a first-team All-American, sixth in the 1991 Heisman voting. Can you imagine? Indiana had a player get Heisman votes in 89, in 91, or in 88, 89, 91, when Randall L. was here. They've had guys up there. They just haven't cracked in. Anthony Thompson should have won the Heisman. That Purdue loss cost him that, unfortunately, sadly, to see that. But before this season, Dunbar came back to Indiana to talk to the team and see how the Indiana program had grown since he was in Bloomington. Tom Allen said, I knew who he was. He's a year older than me. I knew him out of high school. Dunbar started at Fort Wayne Snyder, of course, while Allen was at Newcastle. But Tom had never met him before, and Tom said he was just great player here without question. Dunbar held the school record of 1,805 rushing yards from 1991 until Tevin Coleman broke that in 2014 with 2,038. 2,038. And did not get an invite to the Heisman deal in New York. I'm still pissed about that. That is that is the biggest load of crap ever. There are less than 20 guys in the history of college football that have rushed for over 2,000 yards in Division I play. That's going back to what, 1880s? And he doesn't get an invite because they needed to send two guys from Oklahoma that year? Give me a break. What a sad, sad moment that was.
Well, Tevin didn't do too much for the Jets in week one. I'll tell you that. He had about 23 yards. He was kind of in a.
Well, didn't we just talk about this? There's not a lot you can do if you don't have a line. Exactly, what kind of a line does the New York Jets have? Are you kidding me?
As bad, much worse than Indiana's, I can tell you that at that level. But I think Zach Wilson was hit about 10 times in that game. It was brutally awful. But yeah, Tevin Coleman, Anthony, and Von Dunbar was a first-round pick, right? New Orleans Saints back in the 90s.
Man, they had some they had a string of just great running backs. Indiana's had some really, really good running backs over the years. He likes to see one of those 2,000-yard rushers again. Yeah.
And Stephen Carr showed some promise. I mean, it's Idaho. You got to take it with a grain of salt, but he had a few breakaway runs, right? He had a 24-yard run or 26-yard run down the 2-yard line, which was nice. He had an early, run of 20 or more yards in that first drive, that opening drive. It was interesting how methodical that first drive was. 18 plays, 75 yards. That first touchdown drive took about 6 minutes off the clock, but it was kind of one of those dink and dunk drives that you normally don't see from an Indiana offense, but it kind of shows you maybe where Mike is at this point, and you're trying to establish his confidence.
Yeah, I guess Pete points out, got to officially call ourselves retro. I was in college when these jerseys were used. That's why I'm so familiar with them. Actually, I lived with two players that played for Bill Mallory at that time. So Vince Fisher, Jim Sams, both good players.
What was Kirkwood Street back then, going to Knicks and all those places?
About the same.
Yep.
About the same. There's more now, but about the same. You had Nick's Kilroy's at a different place across the corner there. Hooligans. It was called Hooligans then. So it's changed a bit. But yeah, Tony pointing out, Pete, you are an OG. Ross points out on this date in 1985, Bill Mallory got his first win against Louisville, 41-38. So that's kind of a neat little trivia tip.
Was Howard coaching at Louisville by then or no?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a great question.
Yeah.
I don't think he was there yet. I'm going to look that up. Somebody will look that up. But Jennifer, Jennifer was planning on wearing her new Adidas retro jersey this weekend, but now it sounds like she may be a fashion faux pas. No, not for girls. We were talking about jerseys earlier, wearing jerseys of other guy, from teams and whatnot. And anybody can do whatever they want. It's just not for me. But for girls, I don't think it matters at all. It's like a girl wearing a hat when they play the national anthem. Girls don't have to take off their hats. I don't understand that, but or if they're praying, the girls don't have to take off a hat. Why is that? I don't know, but so obviously it's a different thing for females than it is for males. But yeah, with the jersey thing, I couldn't care. I think that's fine too. I think it looks completely normal for a female wearing the jersey, but we're going to get somebody who that pisses off. So there you go. But that's my opinion on it.
How a town takes on a personality of the apparel deal. Like when I was in Florida, Gainesville, the Gators were Nike. So it was a Nike town. Everyone wore Nike gear at the gym. Here, everyone wears Adidas gear. You go to the gym, it's all Adidas.
Well, supporting the team. I mean, and they brand it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to. They put a lot of money into it, so it's part of the branding. And you see these gigantic contracts signed between these schools and the manufacturers. They have to protect that too. That branding. So, but I forget. It may have been Ross or someone earlier said that good luck finding jerseys. Adidas is terrible. They are. You cannot find Indiana baseball jerseys. You can't find hardly jack. And they won't let you. Indiana's really, really missing out there.
By the way, you promoted Twitter before. Shout out to Brian Hendricks. I don't know if he's listening on the show, but my 1,200th follower. Should I buy him something or give him a little gift for being reaching the 1,200 mark?
Sure.
What can I give him?
Why are you asking me? You can do whatever you wish. Good. Yeah, absolutely.
Brian, if you're listening, thank you. That'll be my
see if he's on a gift list somewhere. Maybe you can get him something like the bridal groom, a registry list.
Yeah.
Maybe he has a registry list.
GoFundMe account. I can put some money.
Wow, Schnellenberger was the U of L coach in 1985.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because he had left Miami in '83, and then he tried that USFL.
That was Schnellenberger's first year in '85. Then.
Yeah. Yeah,
because he was out doing the USFL thing in '84 that did not happen.
Yeah.
And then Louisville hired him, and Louisville absolutely sucked.
Yeah.
They were horrible. They were playing in the old Cardinal Stadium down there off of Interstate 65, just past the old silos that are no longer there. That stadium is no longer there, I don't think. They finally tore it down. Or did they? I think. But you talk about just turf over concrete. It was an old stadium. They played in that, and Howard talked all this. It's going to build a new stadium, and the University of Louisville is on a collision course for the national championship. The only variable is time. John, if you can pull his actual clip up, because I know I get really close on that one. But he was spewing that stuff, and
he had that pipe. He had the pipe.
Oh,
right?
Hell yes, because he was like, the University of Louisville is on a collision course for the national championship. The only variable is time. He's always lighting that pipe. He's always and his wife Beverly, always on the field for every game.
Yep.
But he turned that program around. At Louisville became a good football school. I mean, think of the coaches that they end up getting after that. John L. Smith, Charlie Strong, Bobby Petrino. John L. Smith would leave to go to Michigan State, which would end up being a mistake. He probably should have stayed at Louisville. Bobby Petrino left to go to did he go to Atlanta first from Louisville?
Yeah, and then he went to Arkansas, yeah.
Both of those.
And then he came back.
Both of those were mistakes. Well, he came back because he got caught riding on a motorcycle with his girlfriend in Arkansas and being in a neck brace with a black eye and all this, that, and the other thing, and making national news for that. So, yeah, and then he ends up at Western Kentucky, gave him another shot, which then he comes back to Louisville. You had Jeff Brom as an assistant at Western Kentucky, who then became the Western Kentucky head coach and now the coach at Purdue.
Yeah.
So all this stuff tied together, man. And, of course, Indiana just played Idaho last week, who's Bobby Petrino's brother.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about tying all this stuff together, it's nuts.
Yeah. And then Indiana plays at Western Kentucky in about a week and a half, so it's the 10 degrees of separation. Kevin Bacon.
How about 1 degree of separation? It's just one after the other. Let's talk about jerseys again. Pete points out I use men's soccer jerseys, never available to buy. Think how many – the number one collegiate soccer program in the United States, the top growing program, sports program in the country, probably soccer, but yet it makes no sense to me. I don't get it. But hey, whatever.
Yeah.
Just my thoughts on that. But man, it's been fun to talk about all that stuff though. But yeah, Jennifer, I think you're good. I think wear your jersey. I think they look perfect on, especially if they're cut right. They're good to wear.
Where is she going to be tailgating, you think?
Now, why would I know that?
You're friends with her, yeah.
Well, just because I know people, I don't know where they tailgate.
Yeah.
Know them from on here, and I don't know where anybody's tailgating. You can ask them, and they'll tell you. There's all kinds of places around. Last week, tailgating was pretty popular. I was proud of the students. Not proud. It's not my place to be proud. I was pleased to see those students were the first one in the stands.
Yes.
And I'm talking with 25 minutes before kickoff.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were people over there that hadn't even thought about walking in yet at 25 minutes before. And that student section filled up.
Yeah.
Strong. And someone said they sold 12,000 student tickets. I think it was Don Fisher yesterday that had mentioned that Indiana had sold 12,000 student season tickets this year. Well, they were all there and all in their seats.
That's great.
And that was a great game for Indiana to have and to play. And then now to follow that up with a sold out. If they can win this game, this is what will help Indiana crowd-wise.
Yeah.
They really need to win this game to sustain their crowd. I'm telling you, and you've got to sustain your crowd to help you, because when you have a marginal offense, sometimes a crowd can put you over the edge.
Yeah.
By being your best friend.
I think 6-2 at home in their last 8 games, going back to 2019. So it's starting to become a home field advantage there. And certainly this would be huge this weekend. But you got to get it done on the field. You know, you got to stop Ritter and their whole offense as well as their defense as well.
Yeah, Ritter is a good quarter. How long has he been at Cincinnati?
I think he might be a 6-year guy.
6. Wow. So, and they've got a solid offense. They, like I said, they were held down. Murray State worked the ball last week. They kept the ball out of Cincinnati's hands in the first half. I think that's something Indiana's going to have to look at, really, really getting the running game going this week and being able to hit those passes. Because if they can run a manageable offense with a tight defense, that's going to be their best chance to beat Cincinnati, Kevin.
Yeah, I think, score in the 20s, you know what I mean? That's what the Iowa game could have been without the turnovers. You could have maybe squeaked by and won a 20-16 game if you didn't give away 17 points. Because if we really look at it, then, you don't give away, then it's a 17-13 6-3 game or 17-6 game at that point.
That would be awesome. I need to get Roy Kent to cut an Indiana Sports Beat commercial. That would be great. Ross was asking the Adidas contract for Indiana. It ends in 2024. I'm sure that they'll be re-upping that. But, yeah, this game is one that I'm looking forward to. I think Indiana can definitely win it. They've got to improve their offense, got to get the offensive line going, protect Michael Penix. He has got to get better, got to continue to hit more receivers and get guys open. But Ty Fryfogel's got to catch some of these 50-50 balls that he's not pulling down right now, and he is the master at that.
Yeah, mistimed the leap on the one against Idaho. Did have the touchdown catch. Javon Swinton, a guy that I was really high on all camp, and obviously suspended. He had the issue. He knew he was suspended going into camp, and he talked about the fact that he just stayed focused. And I thought, showed some things. And he's a guy who I think is smart, is disciplined, and he's in a train. Miles Marshall has not done much, and they need Miles Marshall to step up here and make some plays.
But is that his fault or is that the inability to get the ball to him?
Combination, but you've got to get open, you know what I mean, and you got to find ways to make an impact. And he has just one catch in 2 games, a lot of high expectations for him. Penix will find you if you get open. You got to get open, got to create separation.
Well, you certainly made an impact as always, and I appreciate you joining, man. What do you have coming up next, Kevin?
Yeah, Big Ten column this week, going to focus on Ohio State. Are they vulnerable this year? Is this going to be finally year somebody else wins the Big Ten title? And also lots of stuff on IU, including we'll talk about DJ Matthews being a dad, what that means to him. That'll be a nice little, feature family type story.
Make sure you find that in the CNHI papers in your area. If not, follow Kevin on Twitter at Kevin Brockway G1. And again, give me a follow at Jim Coyle, ISB. Appreciate it greatly. Hey, man, I thank you, Kevin. Big thanks to Mike DeCourcy and, of course, Chronic Hoosier, John, the producer. But most importantly, thanks to all of you. Without you, we've got nothing and no reason to be here. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again and can't wait. Look forward to it. Go out and have yourselves a great day. Do something nice for somebody. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.